Hi guys and welcome to this class, and today we are going to be talking about a neuron and the pain pathway together. So let's get started. Yeah, welcome back. And now let's get started by talking about a neuron. Neuron. Now this is not a full video on the description of the neuron. If you want to know about the neuron, the reflex arc, the synapse, neurotransmitters, the brain, spinal cord, sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, you can just opt in or subscribe for our what? For our topic on the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So if you do that, you're going to get a discount price if you actually get the link from the description below. So you can have access to the full detailed knowledge on neuron. But for this, remember we're just talking about the pain pathway. So what we'll only be doing is just some kind of review, some kind of revision. So a very short description of the what? Of the neuron. What you just need to know to understand the pain pathway. And now, let's get started. Now for the neuron, a neuron is made up of two parts majorly. Two what? Two parts. So the first one is called the cell body. The cell body. And the other one is called the nerve processes. Nerve processes. Now, what is the meaning of that? From the word cell, so it looks like a cell. It's the part of the neuron that looks like a cell. So this structure at the center will be called the nucleus like that. As simple as that. So this is what the cell body of a neuron looks like. And now talking about the nerve processes, it looks like a tree. And then if you are talking about a tree, we are going to have the roots embedded within the what? Within the soil level. As simple as that, below the soil level rather. And then you're going to have the stem growing up to form another branch. And the branch, they're going to give rise to what? To leaves. As simple as that. So this is what a nerve process looks like. Now, this stem now, it is the longest part of that tree. So if it's a neuron, it is called the axon. So axon is the longest nerve process. As simple as that. And then the next one, these first branches now. So they are called the dendron. Then what? Dendron. And now, if you take a look at the structure, where else can you find this structure in our diagram? You can find it right here again. Something of this nature. So these guys too, they are called the dendron. The dendron. And then what about the smaller projections? They are called the dendrites. The then what? The dendrites. And where can you find something of this nature again in this whole diagram? You can find it right here. And as well here, they are called the dendrites. As simple as that. Which means nerve processes are of three types. So the first one is called the axon, and the second one is called the dendron, and the last one is called the dendrites. So the axon right here is the longest part. So everything like this is the axon. And then the dendron are the immediate branches from ear to ear. So same thing, these are the what? The dendron, the immediate branches. So, and the leaves are the what? They are the dendrites. As simple as that. Now, if these two structures makes up the neuron, why don't we try and bring them back together? And let's see what is going to give to us. But before that, let's do a quick recap. We said the neuron is made up of what? Of cell body and the what? And the nerve processes. So the cell body looks like a cell, so nothing much. And then the nerve processes. So we have two types. We have the axon, the longest part. So we have the dendron, the immediate branches, and we have the dendrites. So there are the leaf-like structures there, right? Now, let's combine the two diagrams. So let's bring the cell body. So the cell body will just be right here. Simple as that. And now, what about the dendron and the dendrites? If you take a careful look at this diagram, you see that it resembles a letter in English. And this letter is what? Letter Y. So you can use that Y just on these guys like this. Y, 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 Y. And now you bring this your axon now. You bring it downward to this position right here. As simple as that. And then you add this back to it. And that's another Y. As simple as that. So So this is the diagram of a neuron. Not a real diagram, I've told you that. I'm going to draw a real diagram of the neuron for you. I'll be doing all this. But just to understand the pain pathway, this is all you need. Now, let's try and label this. You already know that this structure at the center is called what? The cell body. So this leaf-like structure here, they are called the what? This vicious structure on top. They are called the dendrites. Dendrites. And then the one under this Y structure, they are called what? The dendron. And finally, okay, sorry, this one is called the axon. And then this first structure here, that the first branches to, they are dendron as well. And finally, these other guys are called the dendrites. Dendrites. As simple as that. Now, what do you notice from these labelings? You will notice that we have an axon, right? But we have two dendron. Two what? Two dendrons. This one and this one. And we have two dendrites too. So how do you distinguish between the dendrite on top and the dendrite below? Now, this upper part of these dendrites, what are they called? The lower dendrites, what are they called? The upper dendron, what are they called? The lower dendron, what are they called? So, we'll talk about them in the next thing. So, let's chop the board and I'll be right back. Yeah, welcome back. And now let's take a look at the nephron once again. So I said the nephron is made up of two things. The first one is the cell body right here, right? And then the nucleus at the center. Then I said you can add some kind of Y-shaped structure on top of it. Just Y. And now you can bring in your axon with a double line right here. And then you finish it off with what? You finish it up with the dendron and dendrite again. So I said these guys on top, this V-shaped structure on top, they are called the dendrites. The then what? The dendrites. And then the next part here is called the dendron. So this is our cell body. Nothing much on it. Cell body. And this is the axon. Then we have the dendron. And another dendrite once again. Dendrites. Now what I'm going to tell you here is the generation of impulse and transmission of impulse within a neuron. What's the meaning of that? From our normal definition of neuron, we used to say that a neuron is a cell that can generate and transmit impulse. Now, what is the meaning of that? If a neuron is a cell that can generate and transmit impulse, the word generate means to receive. Though after some kind of conversion called transduction, but leave that for now. Now, the word transmit means to send. It means a neuron must be able to what? To receive impulse, and then it must be able to do what? To send impulse. And impulse means a what? A message. Now, how do you think this cell is going to receive its impulse? Let's assume that this arrow coming downward is an impulse. Which part of this neuron do you think it will come to first? Remember I told you the neuron is like a tree. And this guy is here that the leaves. So that if you are going to pour some kind of water on the plant, which part do you think it will touch first? It's definitely going to be the leaf. And from the leaf, it's going to trace itself down to the branches. As simple as that. So this impulse is going to reach this part first. And this part is called the what? Dendrite. But because this dendrite is the first part of this neuron to receive an impulse, they used to call it a receptive dendrite. Receptive what? Receptive dendrite. And that's the meaning of that. Now, after that, the impulse will go straight up into the structure. And this structure here is also called the receptive dendron. As simple as that. Because they are receiving the impulse. I hope you understand that. And after that, the impulse will go straight up into the cell body. And from the cell body, it will run down into the structure called the axon. And the impulse will keep on coming down. And it's going to branch into this one and this one. And these structures are called the what? The dendron. But because we are nearing the end of the what? Of the neuron. Another name for end is terminal. What? Terminal. And because of that, the dendron that ends the neuron is called a terminal dendron. This is what terminal. So, and the dendrite, from here, the impulse will enter into the dendrite as well. And then this place is called what now? The terminal dendrite. And that is the difference between this dendrite and this dendrite. So, The dendrons on top, at the other part of the neuron, they are called the what? Receptive dendron. And the dendrites on top are also called receptive dendrite because they receive the impulse. But the dendron and the dendrite at the lower part of the neuron are called the what? The terminal dendron, the terminal dendron what? And terminal dendrite, simply because they end the what? They end the neuron. As simple as that. And talking about the generation of impulse or the movement of impulse in a neuron, the impulse is going to enter into the neuron through its receptive dendrite. And from the receptive dendrite into the receptive dendron. And from the receptive dendron into the cell body. And from the cell body into the axon. And from the axon into the terminal dendron. And from the terminal dendron into the terminal dendrite. As simple as that. But then, we said this guy is meant to send impulse somewhere, right? The only function it has performed now is the generation of impulse. So it receives the impulse. It must send it somewhere else too. But how? Let's take a look at this. Neuron is a structure on top, right? You most of the times you used to have another neuron below. Now, if that be the case, how do you think this impulse is going to get to this neuron? Now, you can show that they are not in direct connection. There's a space between them. The space between them is called the synapse. The what? The synapse. So if you are defining a synapse, you can say a synapse is a space between two neurons. As simple as that. Now, because you have a space between these two neurons, how will the impulse, these arrows, how will they reach it? Now, careful. Let's start all over again so that you can understand. The movement of impulse in the neuron starts from the receptive dendrites. And the impulse will go down into the receptive dendron. And from the receptive dendron into the what? Into the cell body. And from the cell body, the impulse will go down into the what? Into the axon. And from the axon, the impulse will go down into the what? Into the terminal dendron. From the terminal dendron, it goes down into the what? Into the terminal dendrite. But after then, it's going to enter some kind of knob. And these knobs, because they are found at the synapse, they used to call them the synaptic knob. Synaptic what? Synaptic knob. There are knobs found in the what? In the synapse. And the synapse is what, as usual, a space between what? Between two neurons. As simple as that. Now, this synaptic knob, this impulse is going to enter it. And when it enters into this synaptic knob, what's going to happen? Normally, inside this synaptic knob, we have some what? Some chemicals there. Some chemicals are inside the synaptic knob. And those chemicals inside the synaptic knobs are called neurotransmitter. Neuro what? Neurotransmitter. And what is the meaning of that? The word neuro, excuse me, sorry about that. And now, the word neuro, it means impulse or message. And the word transmitter means sender. It's from the word transmitter. So transmit is send. Transmitter is someone that transmits. So transmitter means a sender. So if you send the word transmitter, it means this fluid, this chemical, inside this what? Inside this synaptic knob. They are what? They are impulse senders. It means their function is to send impulse. But don't forget, this arrow itself is a what? It's an impulse rather. It's an impulse. So if this impulse gets into this neurotransmitter, it means a message is getting to the post office. Because it's a what? It's a neurotransmitter, an impulse sender, a message sender. A post office is meant to send out the message. So these arrows, they are just like what? They are just like your letters, your message. And they are getting into a pool of chemical. And that pool of chemical is called neurotransmitter. As simple as that. And when it gets there, the neurotransmitter will perform its function. Like it is meant to actually take them somewhere else, to send this impulse somewhere else. And then it is going to open, this synaptic knob will open a little bit. And this chemical will take that impulse onto the next receptive dendrite. As simple as that. And that is how it goes. So the point is that the impulse reaching the synaptic knob, they can't actually fly onto this receptive dendrite. On the other way around, they swim due to the head of the what? Of the neurotransmitter. So just picture this neurotransmitter as some kind of water, and someone jumps into the water, and the water takes the person to somewhere else. As simple as that. Now, let me magnify this part of the diagram, and let's see what I'm talking about. This is a synaptic knob now. This is our terminal dendrite now. This is synaptic knob, which contains some fluid called the what? The neurotransmitter. That is the impulse sender. Now the impulse is coming in right there. So the impulse is doing what? The impulse is coming in. And this is the impulse. So the impulse, just like an human being, it is going to fall into the what? Into this water. And water will take it out gently onto this what? Onto this receptive dendrite of a new what? Of a new neuron. As simple as that. But don't forget, this is not an individual, it's an impulse. And it is being transmitted, it is being sent, it is being transmitted onto this receptive dendrite due to the aid of what? Of a neurotransmitter. Found within the what? Found within the synapse. As simple as that. And what do you think will happen next? The impulse will follow the same pathway into the receptive dendron again, receptive dendron as usual, and then to the what? The convert to the cell body. And from the cell body, you run down through the what? Through the axon, and the axon into the what? Into the terminal dendron into the what? Terminal dendrite, and terminal dendrite into the what? Into another synaptic knob. And another synaptic knob will meet with what? Will meet rather with what else? With another neuron again. And the same process that occurs here will keep repeating itself until you get to the final destination. As simple as that. And that is what you have to understand under the neuron. And then we can start with the pain pathway. Now, just one more time, a quick revision. I'll be right back. Yeah, welcome back. So a quick recap. I told that the neuron is made up of two things. Two parts rather. Sorry about that. So we said we have the what? We have the cell body. And we have the what? We have the nerve processes. So these are the nerve processes. So we have the axon right here. Dendron again. Then right below. Then we have the synaptic knob. Where it's going to meet the other neuron below. So we said this guy here is the receptive dendrite. And impulse is to pass from this receptive dendrite into the structure here called the what? Receptive dendron. And from the receptive dendron, the impulse will enter into the what? Into the cell body. From the cell body, the impulse will run down into the what? Into the axon. And from the axon, the impulse is going to enter the what? It's going to enter into this terminal dendron. From terminal dendron, the impulse will run down into the what? Into the terminal dendrite. And from the terminal dendrite, the impulse will enter the structure called the what? The synaptic knob. And I told you that we have a space here called the synapse, where it's going to meet another what? Another neuron. And now, let's take a magnified look at what happens in the synapse once again. So, let's just pick this place and magnify it right there. So, what are we going to have? As usual, we're going to have from here now. So, let's pick it from this place. So, we have a big synaptic knob right here. So, being held by what? By the terminal dendron. Terminal dendrite rather. I hope you understand that. And now, the space right here. We have another neuron underneath. So, it goes downward. So, the point is that as these impulses, as they are entering into this structure called the synaptic knob, because they are found in the synapse. So, synaptic knob. So, this synaptic knob, they contain some what? Some chemicals called neurotransmitters. Neuro what? Neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters. Now, the neurotransmitters is from the word neuro, which means message, or you call it impulse. Transmitter means sender. So I call them a post office because they send what? Message. So and the letter we are dropping in is this what? Is the impulse here. So the impulse. I would said, as a post office, this letter, just as an human as well, can assume it's a human as well. So, and this water is going to what? Is going to carry these guys straight up and swim onto the what? Onto the receptive dendrite of the next neuron. And that one too is going to receive the what? It's going to receive the impulse. It's going to receive the letter. It's going to receive that person. And then we start transmitting it downward into its own cell body too. And from there into the what? To the axon, and then to terminal dendron and terminal dendrite. Where it's going to meet the other neuron until they get to their final destination. And that is all you have to understand other than neuron to know the pain pathway. Now, we are left with just 2 videos to go. And the first one is the pain pathway proper, and the second one is the physiology of pain. So, let's meet in our next class where we talk about the pain pathway. Until then, guys, I wish you all the best.